iCatholic Mobile is a 5G wireless provider dedicated to supporting your faith and values, offering unlimited talk and text, reliable data, and plans that support Catholic causes. A portion of every dollar helps sustain the mission of the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. With nationwide coverage, iCatholic Mobile connects you to what matters most. More information is available at iCatholicMobile.com.
iCatholic Mobile underwrites for the Station of the Cross.
Essential financial advice that will transform your life today. On The Simple Truth, we consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong, chaste heart of St. Joseph. Our guest today is Erik Weir. He's a Christian husband and father of 5, the principal of WCM Global Wealth, a speaker on finance, investments, AI, and entrepreneurship. He's an accomplished martial artist who studied with Chuck Norris, a multi-engine and instrument-rated pilot of 25 years, and much more, including he's author of Who's Eating Your Pie? Essential Financial Advice that will transform your life. Erik, we are a great blessing to have you with us today on The Simple Truth. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me on. And hear the intro. No wonder I'm tired.
It's great. Yeah, well, you definitely seem to have put the principles that you talk about in the book into practice, and it's awesome to see that. So we're going to dive in deep to as much as we can get to today. But before we begin, do want to remind folks about iCatholic Mobile. It's the only Catholic mobile phone company in the U.S. today. When you subscribe to iCatholic Mobile, you do help fund the Station of the Cross. Check out iCatholic Mobile, iCatholicMobile.com. And I do want to just say by way of introduction today, it's always an ongoing discernment in terms of figuring out who we should have as guests, what the topic should be. And this was one that was actually really clear. God put this book in my path, put Erik as the author of this book in my path. I've really enjoyed reading this book, and now very grateful to have Erik on that we can share some of this with you. I think you're really going to enjoy this today, but mostly our audience here is made up of faithful Catholics, and mostly our guests are faithful Catholic folks, but sometimes we do bring in a non-Catholic, and maybe it's something we ought to do more of. So I just want to say one important reason why that is that there are many non-Catholics who are very strong in natural virtue, natural reason, people who are very smart and sincere and really open and seeking truth, and have figured out some very important things along the way that in no way contradict the Catholic faith, but align and even help us to live it more and better. St. Thomas Aquinas teaches how grace builds on nature, elevates nature. For example, you can take the natural leadership truths of someone like Navy SEAL Jocko Willink, what he has figured out, and with God's grace, you can level up to higher levels of leading yourself more effectively, leading others as a Catholic man or woman. In fact, there are experts in various natural truths, natural virtue, that are teaching very important things that no one in the Catholic world is really teaching. And even very few Catholics seem to be living at a very high level. So as Catholics, we have to admit, look, we don't know everything, far from it. And at the same time, we ought to know the most important truths, of course, that all flow from receiving the gift of the reality of Jesus and his Catholic Church. But that's not going to teach you the additional skills needed for being a great leader or a great car mechanic, or our topic today. Just because you're in a state of sanctifying grace and advancing in virtue doesn't mean you are advancing in your understanding and ability to handle finances. In fact, this can be quite a blind spot. And when you have a vocation as parents of a family, especially men, as a father responsible for providing for your family, spiritual provision is the greatest good, but we also need to provide materially. It's an area we need to get good at and keep growing in. And who is there to teach us? If you didn't learn it from your own parents, maybe you came across Dave Ramsey at some point. That's what happened for me in my 20s as a single man. I learned all kinds of things I was doing wrong and how I needed to make some serious changes. Well, today's show is that kind of opportunity for us. Erik Weir is here to teach us some things that many of us probably do not know very well in terms of handling finances, and also many lessons that apply not just in the area of finances, but also they apply to growing in all the important areas and responsibilities of our lives. So again, Erik, we're very honored and blessed to have you with us. Please tell us more about yourself first so we can get to know you some.
Oh, sure. And again, it's my honor to come on. So I was blessed enough to grow up into a family of faith. And then I had a car wreck at age 5. And it was very traumatic for me. And this was probably the most shaping thing in my life. And so when I'm in the car with my brother, the car crashes, I spin around, I'm knocked unconscious. And as any good older brother would do, he teases you. And I'd seen the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner. What happens when a car gets hit? It blows up, right? It explodes and flames go everywhere. So I'm now, but I'm wanting to listen to my mother who says, stay in the car. And the police officer says, stay in the car. And in the meantime, somebody goes by on a gurney. Didn't look so good, right? From the other car. And I was just like, so I chose death by explosion over disobeying my mother and the police officer. So I'm terrified. So the next day, at dinner, I had a hard time speaking. And I was like, please pass the peas, right? And they noticed that I was speaking differently. So they took me to a speech therapist. And the speech therapist taught me what I call reframing. And they taught me that in a way I'll never forget. They don't think it was intentional, but that's what I... And this therapist said, Erik, is going to be hard. And in fact, odds are you'll be a failure because you're going to not want to communicate with people. You're going to be reclusive. You're not going to want to go to church. You're not going to go to mass. You're not going to want to engage with people because it'll be uncomfortable. And then you'll be reclusive, and odds are a failure. However, if you approach it differently and see every conversation as a challenge that you can overcome, every difficulty as a stepping stone, then by the time you're in your teens, you will have overcome more obstacles than most people do in a lifetime, and you could be unstoppable. The choice is yours. And I looked at my parents thinking, surely this person's a quote. I didn't say these words, but I'm like, tell me they're wrong, right? And my father, who grew up Catholic, grabbed my hand and said, son, life's going to be hard. Let's get started. And the next week I had a lemonade stand, and I do real estate a lot. And I learned that location is important. And when you're 5 years old and you stutter and you're 2 doors down from elementary school, when the parents are in line picking up the children, that's prime selling time. And I had a sign, and that's how I learned business is we're selling lemonade. And I didn't want to speak, so I pointed to the sign. They said, lemonade 50 cents. And my name's Erik Weir. E's and W's are hard to say, and F's, forget about it. They're impossible. So they pulled up, and I'd point to the sign. They said, how much is it? I point to the sign. And they must have wanted some exchange other than me pointing. It says, a second, how much is it? And I go, it's 50 cents. And whatever it was, stuttering was awful at school, but it was fantastic for tips. I never once got 50 cents. I get $1, $5. And that day I netted $76. When my father came home, he said, how'd you do? I said, I made $76 today. This is 1972. He goes, I don't think I did that because at that time he was a foreman with a transportation company. But that's how I got started.
Well, incredible. Yeah, your story is awesome. And people can read more about it in your book, Who's Eating Your Pie? Essential Financial Advice that will transform your life. As we get on into the program, we'll ask Erik a little bit more about what he's doing now as we go. But I do want to ask about the financial understanding. When did that begin? When you were growing up, is this something that your parents taught you, that was handed on to you from an early age? Is that how that worked? How did you learn about it?
Excuse me. Yeah, I learned it actually effectively day 2 with the lemonade stand. So my parents were gone day 2, and while they were gone, I was selling lemonade again. And they came home and asked me, where's the glassware? They looked in the dishwasher, they looked in the sink, they couldn't find it. Where's the glassware? And I said, I sold it all. So the next day, I learned cost of goods sold, and it stuck with me ever since because I had to take all of my money I made to rebuy the glassware for my family. So I learned business the hard way. So I had to buy my 5 years old. I had my cash taken. But real soon for me, my parents had gone through bankruptcy. We lived at that time in a rented house. We've had it happen to him a second time. Lived on a sofa with family members who were willing but not excited about us being there. And I learned at a young age that, hey, I would like to understand business, understand how money works, and understand how to deliver more value to people than if I deliver value, I could create opportunity. And Zig Ziglar would say things like, you need to check up from the neck up. And if you deliver, if you give so much out and deliver value to people, then it comes back to you. And that's what happened for me in business. And I've been in many different businesses over the years. But that's been my cornerstone, is to try to maximize on the value for people, have a unique advantage, and try to let your yes mean yes, your no mean no, and show up to work every day and do the best you can, and know there are setbacks along the way. There's no success without setback, and try to learn from mistakes, not punish yourself and kick yourself for a long period of time.
Yes, Erik Weir is with us again. The book we're talking about today, Who's Eating Your Pie? Essential Financial Advice that will transform your life. You can find it anywhere you find books. And we're getting close to hitting the break, but I guess I'll set up my next question this way. This is a point in the book that that caught my attention. You know, again, I in thinking about the audience here today and who specifically I had in mind in doing this interview, it's really mostly fathers that I have in mind. Good, solid, faithful men working hard to make ends meet for their family and are stressed and struggling. And I imagine those fathers having a high level of purity in their motivation on seeking to grow their financial pie, to use the metaphor of the book. So that's how I think about the why of that part of the audience that I'm thinking of today, but that's not certainly always the case. And there's lots of other kinds of people listening or watching us here too, who may have very different whys. And there may be aspects to it that they're not even aware of. One example Erik talks about in the book on page 121, he writes this: I don't think I'm the only one who has tried bitterness as a motivator for success. Instead of setting a goal to become a millionaire for their own financial security and happiness, for example, some may do it as a way of getting back at the person who hurt them. We're going to talk about this and much more when we get back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, Erik Weir. We're talking about his book, Who's Eating Your Pie? Essential Financial Advice that will transform your life. We're going to get back to it in just a moment. But first, if you are buying or selling a home, there is an easy way to help the Station of the Cross at the same time. Real Estate for Life has 1,400 experienced, morally grounded agents in the U.S. and Canada. Visit realestateforlife.org to find a Christ-centered, experienced realtor near you. And don't forget to mention the Station of the Cross. All right, I want to go to, again, page 121 of the book. You write about bitterness as a possible motivator for success. Can you talk about this, sort of maybe these unconscious motivators we may have, and what is the right motivator for financial success?
Wow. Yeah. So it is so common, to pretty much, I can share a story that I had that was so painful, being picked on as a kid that would stutter. So when I was doing martial arts, I would channel my energy into being an excellent martial artist. And I found that really was effective, but it ended up not really helping my heart. And it wasn't until later in life that I learned about the power of forgiveness and to forgive, and the release that I had after that. And actually the freedom of emotional energy that was tied up from bitterness and anger and resentment allowed me to be much more creative. So the interesting, when you forgive somebody, or then let the bitterness go, you think you don't want to do that because you don't want to let them go. But actually the prisoner you let go is yourself. And it's fantastic to do that. So for me, that's been a very powerful thing is forgiveness. And when I look at the right way to do things is, I think there are 5 F's in life: faith, which is the world, the way you see the world, your faith in Christ. So faith, family, fitness, finance, friends. And I've had the privilege of being around some incredibly successful people near the end of their life. They've never asked to be around their car, their house, their airplane. They've asked to be around the people that meant the most to them. And what I found across the board is oftentimes we sacrifice very valuable things to us in pursuit of wealth. So I call the wheel of life is in my view, there's no balanced life, but there can be harmony. For example, if you have a young child born, it's hard to have a balanced life with exercise and sleep for a period of time. But over time, you get caught up. So what I tell people is, Look at where you are in the 5 F's. See how you're doing. Faith, family, fitness, finance, friends. Recognize that you can give more or less attention to an area for a period of time, but the areas you ignore over the long term consume you. And if you're thoughtful in the way you accumulate wealth, and while you go, I find that generosity is very important, and it's a key component of wealth creation is generosity.
Yeah, in fact, so you were given a lot of great lessons by your parents, and now you've built on that, and you're giving great lessons to your own children. Talk a little bit about that and about these 3 words: live, give, and invest.
Yeah, so I actually made a wooden box that had a lock on it. So once you made your decision as a kid, it was made, right? And I had the key, but it was plexiglass. It was a little torturous in a way, in retrospect. But you'd have this box that had 3 dividers in it. One was live. This was money that you could put inside and go buy Legos with, or Army Men, or whatever you wanted to as a young boy. Then you had the give. That was the part that you could go and give at mass. You could give. That was your giving part. Your charitable. The important part about that is when you're giving, something about generosity releases you from the control of money and scarcity that's unlike anything else. It's very, very powerful. And then we did the invest. And when you're young, like their age, investing might be you buy something that you can use in a little entrepreneurial trade as a kid, maybe a sponge to wash a car or something. So just teach the principles of, I had 4 brothers. You get the soap, you get the sponge, you get the tire cleaner. You guys charge $15 and you get back your money from supplies. The first car you wash, the next 2 cars are all profit for you. Split it. So that's kind of like creating opportunities. And it's not about the best car wash. It's not about you don't have other things you can do, but it's about instilling principles that are remembered forever. And those were very powerful times for both myself and for my children.
Erik Weir is with us. The book, Who's Eating Your Pie? Essential Financial Advice That Will Transform Your Life. Maybe you're blessed in this area as like Erik, in the sense of your parents handed it on to you. You're building on that, handing it on to your children. That's wonderful. But for many, this is an area that maybe you didn't get much in terms of understanding in growing up. And then you might not have that much to give to your own children because of that. So, hey, let's be intentional about diving in. Erik's taken the time to put together a great book so that we can learn from his wisdom on this, and we can receive what maybe we haven't before, and then we have something to give and to hand on to our children in terms of this sort of just an understanding of how money works, not to be afraid of it, but to understand it and have a right, proper way of looking at things, and then navigating things and teaching them to even go beyond perhaps what our experience has been. And so again, the book, Who's Eating Your Pie? Erik, the book is broken down into 3 big sections: understanding financial success, planning financial success, and activating financial success. A lot of the nuts and bolts in terms of the investing, real estate, stock market, things like that. A lot in there in the 3rd section. A lot of that was brand new for me in many ways, and it was so refreshing to read about. It just details, I guess I haven't been very interested in that, or just for whatever reason have avoided that, maybe because it's a weakness. And to read that, just very refreshing, the way you put it with such clarity, to be able to understand, okay, this is the way these things work. It's not really that complicated to understand the basics of these things. So very much appreciate that. But it really builds upon the groundwork you lay out in sections 1 and 2 that even go beyond the financial pie into the other areas of life that we want to keep growing and getting better in. One particular aspect, one concept that really struck me was this: getting 1% better each day. I really like that. You share a story in the closing of the book about a man that you helped, a friend who you helped, who really needed some help in trying to move his life forward. And his first 1% task of the day was to, the first thing he had to conquer was to shave his unibrow. And then he built from there. Can you share more about, maybe use this example and help us to understand this concept?
Yeah, so this person was stuck at a wage, and I asked him, I said, do you want me to be honest with you? Yeah, I mean, like, you gotta really want honesty. I mean, you want honesty, or you want, like, not so much honesty? I want honesty. I'm like, okay. And he had a distracting monobrow, and a very nice guy, large family, but distracting monobrow. And I said, well, he goes, I just can't get a higher wage than what I'm getting right now. And I'm like, really? Yeah. And I'm talking to him. He's like, and he's always looked disheveled. And I said, look, I feel bad even trying to help you, but I will if you want me to. Help me. I said, start off by shaving your monobrow. He goes, what do you mean? I said, it's distracting. It's like a solid hair all the way across your face, your head, between your eyes. I can't stop looking, and it winks at me. And he starts, I said, so just cut it, cut a spot and come back and we'll work on it. So he did that. And then we said, now your clothes, where do you keep your clothes? He goes, well, after I wear them, I lay them on the floor, I pile them up, and I reassemble them when I need to put them on. I'm like, it looks like that. I'm not surprised that you said that. How about you go to Goodwill and just try to find some stuff that fits? Yeah. And then hang it up or steam it, iron it before you wear it. And he did. I said, start dressing above the situation a little bit. And we talked, and then ultimately said, hey, why don't you get some education? And he ended up, long term, he ended up getting a college degree, and I think he grew his income more than 600% over just a few years by just making progressive changes and being teachable. And I have many, many examples of people in that. But it's not, you have to understand that progress compounds. And, and most of us don't want to get started because somewhere along the line, we've just gotten beaten down by the world, and we're sad or we're overwhelmed, and we've kind of lost the dreams we once had. If you talk to a 5-year-old child, they want to be an astronaut, or I'll be an airline pilot. And by the time you're 40, you may just want a good night's sleep, right? So how do you give yourself permission to dream is where I try to get people to start. And then when you start higher up, it's easier to work your way back down because you're not blinded by familiar self-imposed limitations. Because if I start with, I want to do a little bit better, oftentimes I'm blinded by, I may have tried certain things before. And I can spend more time on that. But the idea is to reframe every situation to where could it be, and to begin to take small progressive changes to head in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and then as setbacks come, as they inevitably will, to not to keep going, right? To see the opportunity even in that setback, or hiding right behind that setback, to be able to reframe things in this way, to say, I'm going to keep moving towards this goal no matter what. And I think part of this is the concept you lay out to never really, to never call anything, label anything as failure. That this is something that, nothing is a failure as long as you keep moving forward, and you are a success if you are taking action, even small action, towards your goal every day. That is successful. And that's what you need to keep doing. And over time, that's going to build. And I think 5 years down the road, you paint the picture in the closing of where that man was, and just absolutely incredible, the life that he was living 5 years down the road, because he kept taking that 1% action in the right direction every single day. Anything more you want to share on that concept, or anything else around this about, you're not a failure if you have a setback. You just got to keep moving forward.
There's no question about it. And it's trying. I had a friend who was wanted to lose 100 pounds 6 years in a row, and he never did anything about it. And I said, look, just change your goals and just say, I like to eat, and I'm okay being 100 pounds overweight. And nobody really cares. We love you. It doesn't matter anyway. Because it's not true, Eric. It's not true. Can you help me? I'm like, okay, but you got to go slow. The problem is you want to make change too fast. He goes, what do you mean go slow? I said, tomorrow morning, turn your computer on and stop for the day. Okay, I can do that. Turn his computer on. The next day, turn it on, open a Google Drive, or a Google browser, but stop. Next day, put Health Club near me, stop. Next day, call, but hang up because you're moving too fast. The next day, complete the call. The next day, go in for a session. Meet them. Next day, go in for a session. Next day, you work out. Well, now in like 7 or 8 days, you now have a trainer and you're working out at a health club. Whereas for 6 years, you never did anything. It was progressive change. We try to make too much change too fast. And in that, it sets us up for a setback that many of us can't handle right out of the gates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is not about getting rich quick. Erik is very clear in the book that that's not the way, right? He's got a great phrase on this. I'll try to find it within the break here and have it for you back on the other side. I know I read it in the closing. It takes time, right? These things are going to take time, but you've got to put the effort in every day, moving in the direction of these goals. This applies again to every pie in your life, to use the metaphor. But what about the financial pie? We're going to get into that when we get back. But also, I do want to have Erik lay out for us this ABC goal setting. We're going to be back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, Erik Weir, talking about his book, Who's Eating Your Pie? Essential Financial Advice That Will Transform Your Life. And I just want to read this to you. This is from the closing of the book, or the last chapter, 4 Choices for Success. Erik writes the following. He says, success in any area takes time. You can't go from a baby Christian to a world-class theologian after taking a 6-week Bible class. You can't go from beer belly to 6-pack abs after 2 workouts, and you won't go from broke to billionaire overnight. That's actually a good thing. Most people who have those strike-it-rich moments lose all their money within a year or two because they didn't take the time to learn how to manage that money wisely. It slips through their fingers almost as quickly as it appeared. He says, I've focused on giving you a roadmap for building wealth over the long haul. He follows this by saying it takes time, focus, and commitment to set and achieve huge goals. It won't be easy. It won't be overnight, but you can do it if you apply what we've discussed throughout this book. And so I do want to have you highlight for us, Erik, I thought what was one of the most valuable aspects of this book for me. I'm always looking to see, okay, how can I be more productive? How can I show up to those things that I'm responsible for, to those, have a well-discerned schedule of, all right, this is what I'm called to, and then to be able to show up and do it as well as possible. And you with this ABC goal setting, very helpful. I've now incorporated this into my my daily routine, and I think so far it's been quite helpful. We'll see as we go with it, but yeah, I was able to tweak some things and just put a little bit more intentionality into it, a little bit more writing things down and getting extra clear on specifically what's going to be happening throughout the day and in what order, what priority, and found it very helpful. Can you share some of that with us?
Absolutely. And in fact, I'd like to share a gift with your listeners as well after we're done with this piece. But in the most simple form I wrote about in the book is ABCs. And the ideas are A goals or A things you're working on, are the single most important thing that you need to do. And in fact, oftentimes they're not only important, but they might be urgent. They'll carry the biggest weight, the biggest impact in your life if you do these things first. And one of the greatest indicators of success is the ability for somebody to stay focused on the highest, most important task for them at any single moment. And then when they get off task by distraction or a phone ringing or something, to the ability to get back on task again, to go back and work on the A task. And I take it a step further. I'll list all the things I need to do in a day. And then I'll write an A by anything that's urgent and important. And I'll do B's by things that maybe they're important, but they're not urgent. They can wait a little bit. They're important. They're important, but they're just not urgent. And then C's can be like they're not important and they're not urgent as a framework. And I never really get to the C's. And what you'll find is the C's might be, if you're a real estate agent, to wash the car. And when you're 3 hours before you're ready to show houses, it becomes an A, right? Now you need to wash the car and vacuum it because it's important, but it wasn't as important before. Usually what happens in life is we spend our time on the C's and B's all the time because the A's are maybe things we're not wanting to deal with. But then I go further and just A1, A2, A3, A4, and I label in importance what's the most important A, then what's the most important B to least important in C. And most days I never really get off the A's. And since the writing of the book, I've tried to take it even a little step further. And I've created a handout that talks about my key concepts. I mean, how to get 1% better a day. What one thing do I want to get 1% better? What are my top 3 goals for today? My top 3 for the month, my top 3 for the year, and top 3 for the week. And then I do gratitude. What am I grateful for today? Because I find that it's hard to be depressed and down on yourself with gratitude. So every day I do something for gratitude. And I break down my day by times. And I start my day now with strategic thinking. What strategy could I do that makes the biggest difference in my life? Then what offense, what can I do to take ground? Defense, what can I do to hold ground? And my favorite now is moonshot. What one thing could I do each day that, if successful, could forever change my life? And this is something that a moonshot for some people could be just forgiving someone. Or that could be the moonshot that releases you to have a much more creative energy and joy in your life. So that's something that I try to do every day is what moonshot, a new business, make a call you're uncomfortable making, do something that puts you outside your comfort zone that aligns with your goals.
Wow, that's great. That sounds terrific. Is there a place that we can access what you have there?
Absolutely. If you go to Instagram at Erik Weir, ERIKWEIR, and just direct message me, if you just like it, direct message me, and I'll send it to you. Say send it to me. Just say send it to me, and I'll send you the planner in digital form.
All right, that's awesome. All right, so Instagram at Erik Weir, like and direct message Erik, say send it to me, and he will send it our way digitally. Wonderful, that's terrific. Thank you so much for that, Erik. And
sure.
As far as the section in the book on the finances, where you really get into the nuts and bolts, section 3 of the book. Tell us, what do you think would be the most important item to share with us today in terms of essential financial advice that will transform our lives?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the money that holds people back are lies that we believe about ourselves, honestly. It's about money, but it's really about ourselves. Like, you'll never amount to anything, or you'll be just like your relative, or you're not smart, or whatever some lies we believe. We need to take those thoughts captive and then realize we're created in God's image, and there's nothing that cannot be accomplished. And then how can we, with gratitude, with thoughts, with planning, take action, and then give back and live a generous life. I mean, give back to others. And once you learn a way, help others along their way as well. Because one of the greatest attributes of a leader and someone who's become successful is to help and to give back along the way. But I would start with any particular scenario, and I would just begin to build from that. And if you have time for a quick story, I can tell you of a story that was very helpful for somebody.
Yes, please.
Okay. I was at a marriage conference, and the person came in, and they were very sad. And they said, I said, what happened? I said, Erik, I just went bankrupt. I lost everything. The year was 2009. I said, what do you mean you lost everything? He said, I was a real estate agent. I was making over $100,000 a year. I had a mortgage. I had a car payment, and I've lost everything. And worse than that, I've lost the respect of my wife, and she thinks I can't support us. There were about 20 other men in the room, and I said, would you mind if we talked about you and just try to help you right now? And he said, sure. I said, you've got everything you need to be successful today. It's reframing. He said, what's reframing? I'm like, if you couldn't fail, here's the key question. What would you do? He goes, I would buy this textile mill. I live in a southern state. It's been vacant, and it's unoccupied, and they want $2 million for it. I said, well, why would you buy it for $2 million? He goes, well, it has more than that, than copper and wood and brick that I could sell. And then I would still have a place that I could build real estate on and own the real estate. And I said, well, that's amazing. Well, why don't you own it now? And here's his thinking. He goes, I don't have $2 million. And that was his first wrong thought. I mean, there's all the money in the world belongs to our Father in heaven. You don't need anything, right? I said, well, why don't we reframe it? Why do they want to sell the building? Well, it's a risk. Homeless people live there. So they are motivated. They're motivated by time. Yes, they want to get out of it by the end of the year. Why? Because it's 2009. The world's in a recession. Like, okay. I said, offer them $500,000 to buy the property. He goes, wow, they'll never take that. Well, just do it. So he did. And they said yes. So he calls me. Now he's mad at me. He goes, Erik, not only is my wife mad at me, not only have we lost everything, he doesn't respect me, but now I have to come up with $500,000 that I don't have. And I said, well, didn't you just tell me that copper was worth almost $1 million and the wood was worth almost $1 million and the brick? Yes, I did. Do you know people who buy those? Yes. I said, call them. Have them wire 1/3 of the money into an attorney's escrow account, and at closing, use their money to buy the building. Fast forward, they did that. He ended up buying the building, and in a matter of a few months, he went from being completely broke to having a paid-off building. He was able to pay cash for it. He did over $1 million in escrow, paid the $500,000, had $500,000 left over, and when they paid the balance, he made even more money. And he's done that well more than a dozen times since and is now retired. But the setback of losing everything set him up to be successful and reframe things. If that didn't happen, he would still be a real estate agent somewhere in North Carolina today. But instead, he's now retired and he focuses on ministry full time.
Amazing. Yeah, Erik, share with us a bit. Erik Weir is with us. Share with us a bit. You have your creative thinking, just like you lay out there, an understanding of how the finances work in all of these various areas. Again, he gives us a basic understanding of the book, very helpful for those who don't have it. But then also, Erik, you're living out of these principles that you share with us in the book. You have reached incredible success financially, for sure. And can you share a little bit with people just what is possible you went from a lemonade stand as a kid and just overcoming the fear and overcoming the stuttering and all of that to where you are now. Share a little bit more about further down the road in your journey and the success that you've achieved.
Yeah, one of my greatest moonshots was Topgolf. And I had been to Topgolf. I went and played. I flew to an appointment in Florida, and I had a person I was going to meet stood me up. They weren't there. So that still happens. It happened. So I instead of getting mad, my son and I, we rented a car and we went to Topgolf. I'm like, this is an incredible way to spend time. A, I spent more time here than I thought. B, I spent more money. I'm like, I would love to own one of these one day, right? So go back to my hometown. It's Father's Day. And then I said, kids, what do you want to do for Father's Day? Let's go to Topgolf. So we ended up taking my father and all my kids. And it's the only thing I've ever done that if you're your 80s or you're 10, you have a good time. So I said, man, I want to get involved in this. And then I learned through a friend that were building a Topgolf in my town that Topgolf lost their global financial partner who was helping to fund their growth. Meaning they do what's called a reverse build to suit, where they would pay for the construction of the building, buying of the land for the facility, and then Topgolf would sign a lease. And then that group has said, hey, it's been successful. We love it, but we have over 30. We don't need any more. So I called the chairman of the board, and I said, hi, my name is Erik Weir. I'd like to be your global financier for Topgolf. And he goes, whoa, that's a big ask. And I said, where are you going to be Friday? He goes, Las Vegas. I'm like, me too, crazy. And I wasn't planning on going, but I was then. I'm on Expedia. I said, where are you staying? The Luxor. Stop. Me too. What are you doing for dinner Friday? I don't have plans. Let's have dinner. I'll talk to you about being your global finance partner. It was okay. So I get there. We hang out for 3 hours. I bring my son. I don't mention anything about that. Drives him crazy. Finally, he goes, look, you're here about being the global finance. What are you doing? How much money do you have right now? I go, as of right now, I don't have $1. And he's like, what? So you flew all the way out here without $1? That has to be my global finance partner. And I said, yeah. I said, but if you give me a chance, anyone in the world will have to go through me to get to be a Topgolf owner. And I've done this sort of thing before in investment banking. And I believe if you give me a chance, I can make it happen. He says, it's not my call. So he introduced me. He says, it's the board of directors. As soon as the board of directors, I fly to Texas with my lawyer who is getting sick now. Why did you get us in this situation? I can't believe it. Oh, my gosh. Same question. How much money do you have? Nothing. They laugh. And I said, well, it's best for Topgolf. And he kind of laughs, and I like this guy. And long story short, they gave us an opportunity, and it's always been difficult. And we got a chance to finance the first one. Then we did the second one. and do the third one. And we never got the world, so that never happened. But we'd opened the door, and they gave it. And in the end, the CEO of Topgolf at that time, he wrote the foreword on my book. And now I'm partners with people and doing Topgolf in Europe, and they've also written a foreword in the book. But all that came out of a moonshot and trying. And the thought of a moonshot is they don't all work. In fact, most don't. But when they do, their life changes. So set something you can do every day that, if successful, can change your life. And one day, it will.
Erik Weir is with us, and I was hoping you'd tell the Topgolf story. Really glad you did. Thank you for that. And when we get back, we're going to give Erik the floor. Anything else that he wants to share with us. But remember, I've read every word of this book. Highly recommend it. Who's Eating Your Pie? Erik Weir. We'll be right back. Back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, Erik Weir. Erik is the principal of WCM Global Wealth. He is a financial wealth advisory firm that serves clients ranging from some of the biggest multi-platinum and Grammy-winning recording artists, pop culture celebrities, professional sports icons, and international clothing designers to several families listed on the Forbes World's Billionaires list and other notable business owners. He's also written this great book, Who's Eating Your Pie? Essential Financial Advice That Will Transform Your Life. Read every word. Highly recommend it. Get your hands on the book, Who's Eating Your Pie? You'll learn a lot of great lessons, I'm sure, that will be helpful for you. And make sure that you direct message him over at Instagram at Erik Weir. So at Erik Weir, ERIKWEIR, Erik Weir on Instagram. Go there, direct message him, say, send it to me, and you'll get that daily digital plan, which includes the moonshot prompt, encouraging you to take your moonshot every day. Really appreciate everything that you're doing here, Erik, and grateful to have you with us today. Anything else? The floor is yours for this final segment. Anything else you want to share with us today?
Yeah, I just think I want people to be encouraged, no matter where you are in life, no matter what setback you've had, what health issue you've had, what relationship issue you've had, what financial issue you had. There's hope, and not only hope. There's a significant probability that things can get significantly better for you. And one of the greatest places to start is gratitude. To be grateful, even if you have almost nothing and it's terrible. And I've been to the Sudan, and I've seen families there and that have nothing except rice, oil, water, and I've seen them with gratitude in their eyes because that was better than the way they were before. So find something to be grateful for and start there. Second, begin to lift your eyes and give yourself permission to dream again and get out of the pit of self-sabotage. The biggest limitations we have are the ones that we allow ourselves to believe. And we know that God is a God that owns everything. And we're free to dream big and then begin to change your psychology. I call it the psychology of success. And this isn't overnight. It takes time. But with having small successes, I'm talking 1% change. Can you make a 1% change in any area? Can you eat 1% healthier? Can you walk 1% more? Can you watch 1% less television and do 1% more planning? It'll change your life each day. Because if you think about it, with the rule of compounding, it's something called the rule of 72. Rule of 72 states that if you divide any number to 72, that's how long it takes it to double. So you divide 1 into 72, it's 72 times. So if I make 1% change for 72 days, I've doubled my productivity. If I do it all year, I've done over 1,000% change in my life while not making any massive changes any particular day. And that's the really thing. It's progress compounds. The next thing to think about is, and this is really where it comes time to be honest. Where are you right now? Where are you and where do you want to go? You can say, hey, I'm in great shape. I'm in not great shape. Life's a 2 for me. Wherever it is, just be honest. Jack Welch was the former chief executive officer of a very successful company called General Electric. And he would open every meeting by saying, where are you? Where are things right now? Not how you wish they were, not how you want them to be, but how are they really? Start there, then start with gratitude, then start with give yourself permission to dream, and then you move into what's stopping you. What stopped you to this point? Just like in the story I shared earlier, the man that bought the $2 million building for $500,000, he had the head and the skill set to do that the whole time. But it wasn't until he had desperation that he made the change. People typically make change in two scenarios. One, in desperation. Two, inspiration. So if you're in a desperate situation, that's a wonderful position to be in, because now you're in a position where you can typically make a fair amount of change in a relatively short period of time. But be thoughtful. What is stopping you? Is your limiting thoughts? Are you afraid to dream? Do you have friend groups that you know, hey, these aren't friends that I should be spending time with? Do they encourage you? Do they help you? Do they point you in the right direction? Are they not? Or do you even have, this is something interesting called bad expectations. Do you even think it just can't work out for you? Or that success is evil? So think about what you have any limiting thoughts. And once you get past that, determine where you want to go. Then I call the next one bridging the gaps. No one has every tool. No one has all the resources, the education, the know-how, or the experience. One of the ways I like to bridge the gap is I like to volunteer. When I was a kid, I tried to be a mentor. Now I'm a mentor, but I try to be an apprentice for some period of time for free to learn. As I get older, I try to still learn from people. And what can I do? And then try to better yourself every time. And I employ something called the Pareto principle. It's the 80-20 rule. If you look at any process, anything you're doing in life, you'll find that 80% of your productivity comes from 20% of your activity. Also, 80% of your problems come from 20% of the things in your life. So what can you do to do more of the 20 and less of the 80? So as you begin to improve and make improvements, then try to offload things that are not the best use of your time. Start every day with prayer. End every day with prayer, and end every night with planning, and start every day with planning. And I think strategically first, what can I do now? What can I do to take ground? And I start to think offensively. What steps can I realistically take tomorrow to advance the goal? Then I think defensively. What are things like right here, right now that I've got to deal with? Maybe you have to call somebody back you don't want to, or you have some super uncomfortable situation that's sapping your energy. Just deal with it and get it over with. And then 4 is take the moonshot every day. And in order to do that, it's important first to get to clarity. Clarity is ridiculously powerful. It's very difficult to get to. How do I get to clarity? I think of my 5 areas: faith, family, fitness, finance, friends. I'll take time, half hour, however time it takes, to think about where would I ideally like to be in these 5 areas. Get to clarity. It takes a minute. It's not going to happen the first time you sit down. It takes a while. And as you get to that clarity where you want to go, it's very difficult not to get there if you know where you want to go. And then you start to make steps to put your plans into action. Build backwards. Start with the end in sight, where you want to go. Say, okay, I would like to own a home in 5 years. Okay, that's a quantifiable goal. What kind of home? Make it clear. 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in this neighborhood in 5 years with brick, and it has white trim. Okay, now your clarity. Okay, what's life going to look like then? What do you have to do to get there? Well, I have to have a down payment, or I want to pay cash. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You begin to build. Now, how would I go about getting there? And then you build your steps from where you are today. Then you think of what resources do I need? What people do I need to work with? What skill do I need to learn? How can I better myself? And you work consistently and pragmatically in that direction. And when you have setbacks, as you most assuredly will, you take a step down and you don't say it's not a failure, it's a teaching incident. What can I learn from this? What can I do differently next time? And then the idea is you're never going to stop making mistakes. You'll end up having setbacks, but if you learn from them, you'll be better off. And if you realize that Michael Jordan missed over 16,000 shots, 16,000, and yet he's not viewed as a horrible loser for missing the basket 16,000 times. He's viewed as a massive winner because he took that many shots and he kept going. And when you're thinking this kind of way, think positively, think with clarity, think precisely, start over each day, and the mistakes you make that were yesterday. If you look at an hourglass, you have the time above that hasn't gone through yet. Nobody knows how much time we have. We have the time that's gone through the hourglass. It's the amount of time you spend worried about that you can't change. And you have the time that's right in the middle coming through. Focus on that with a plan toward the future. That will massively change your life. 1% change a day. Be grateful, be prayerful, be thoughtful, and give back.
Erik Weir, what a blessing. Thank you so much. Who's Eating Your Pie? Essential financial advice that will